let's continue our refactoring of the logic in main.cpp. So it goes to the game class. So let's pick up from line 91. We have the event, we have player position, we have the game loop, and right after game loop we have the cleaning up of the surface and window. So let's see what we can do here. So let's think about this. Well, the game loop right here, we can make the game loop and place that into a function in the game class. So this function in game class will be responsible for running the game loop. So we can just call it run. So game.run would be the function we are going to call. And then we can finish off, wrap it up with putting the free surface and destroy window in the shutdown of the game, and these variables go as private variables. How about that? Okay, so let's start doing that. So first I'm gonna take the while loop. I'm gonna cut. I'm gonna go to game.cpp. I'm gonna paste. Oops, actually I want to make a function for that. So before I paste, go to game.h, add a new public member function, call it run, no parameters, no return type, so it's void. Go back to game.cpp, let's call it void game : run. Let's paste the code for the game loop here. Now we need a variable quit, so let's go back to main.cpp. We can cut line 93 and put it before line 147. And we can have the variable there as local. You probably could have it as a private member later on if you want to reference the quit from any other member function, but for the time being I can leave it here. So we while quit. So we have the pulling of the event. Now we need the event as well. So go back to main.cpp, cut line 91, move that to here, line 148. And we pull the event. If the type is SDL quit is true and the loop will finish. Else if event.type, then we call it handle player input. Now we need this function handle player input. Let's define it as a member function of the game class. Game.h, go back. Let's call it void handle player input. And for the parameters, you probably won't need them. Let's take a look. Go back to game.cpp. We're calling it the event. Actually, we are going to need the event here if it's a local here. But you could also place this as a private variable. So let's first just deal with the ones we don't have yet. So event is here, so that's fine. Player position, we don't have it, so let's go back to main.cpp. We have a player position right here. Let's take this player position because something that's of interest to perhaps more than just one member function. So I'm going to cut this and I'm going to go back to game.cpp. Now for that part, actually I want to set it somewhere else. Let me backtrack a little bit. So the player position here is using the entrance position.x and entrance position.y. So we're going to do the following. We're going to take the left hand side, which is the declaration of the variable. We're going to make that a private, okay? And then the right hand side will be the definition that's going to happen as we call game, a new function. Let's call this new function to set the player position. The problem is we have to do it right after these because the entrance position is only set when we load the game maps, right? So we cannot just initialize this in the constructor of the game class. So let's take that. So I'm gonna cut, actually I'm gonna copy the left hand side. I'm gonna make it go to the game header file as a private SDL rect player position right there. Now going back to main, I'm gonna take this accept the type and I'm gonna remove it, and I'm gonna create a new function. I'm gonna call it set player position. Okay, so let me go back to game.h and add that function void set player position, no parameters, and game.cpp. That's actually the initial position, or is it the player? Yeah, that'll be set initial position, but that's fine. Let me add here void game : set player position, and I'm gonna paste that code saying that the player position equals the entrance position .x, entrance position .y, 32, 32. So we assume, the assumption is that this function will only be called after these coordinates for the entrance position have been set. Okay, so that's that assumption. And go back here to main, it's being called. Go back to game with CPP. We have that here. And you probably want to set some initial value in the constructor if you want for that rec. Otherwise, it might have garbage data. So usually when you have all these variables, you want to set some default value just in case. So if the player position, for example, let's go to game.cpp. I'm going to say player position equals, I'm going to say x is 0, y is 0, width is tile size, height is tile size. So in case where it doesn't, something happens, I don't know, the player position not set, at least it will be in the very first column in line. We can also do that for the others if you want, but a game map surface, maybe you can set that to null because it's a pointer. Game map surface null. Exit position, entrance position, it's here. The tiles we're going to deal with that later, so I'll leave it there. Window surface and window is null. Window surface is null. Just to have an initial value. And the other ones, these are supposed to be constants. I would say a static constants, but let's do it. Let's do it later. It don't have to be, but if you want. But anyway. And I forgot the game loop, right? So I have to say game.run. So the loop will run here. And we can move these free surface and destroy window to the shutdown function right before the quits. And let's check the variable names. Game map surface is here. Destroy window is here. Game.h. So it seems like everything is in place, and we have set player position here, the run event. So let's backtrack what we had. So we had handle player input, right? We don't need player position, we don't need game map tiles, and let's go to this function. Is it here yet? It's not. We gotta go back to main.cpp and cut the handle player position function and paste it in game.cpp. Let me put it at the end and put the prefix game : before the function name handle player input. Remove the second and third because they are already as accessible as private data members. Let's add this to the header. I'll just copy this part and remove the prefix. Oh, it's already here, sorry. There you go. Now, since you have this event here, actually you can also make that a private, so you don't have to have it passed. So I'll remove that from the handle player input, and I'll cut and paste into the private member of game, so we have an event here. Now make sure to go back to the game loop in the game run and remove this declaration because it's already been it's already instantiated, right? It's already done in here. Now going back to the game run, we have the polling of the event and we have player input. We don't need event anymore here. And after that, this is the input part. We have the lit surface game map surface. Okay, Windows surface, fine. Now we have this return. Maybe you want to crash for now. Player color suffers. Correct. Actually, this game player color doesn't have to be set. Does it have to be set in the loop here? So perhaps I could take this and make it a private member as well. So let's do it the following. I'm gonna copy this, go to game.h. I'm gonna paste it here, you int 32 player color, and then I go back to game.cpp. And in the definition, I'm gonna do that in well, I could do it right after setting up the Windows surface. Let's take this out of here. Let's see if we can work this out. Where's the Windows surface made? Set in create window, right? Right here. Right after that, maybe from main, instead of after creating the window, we can set the player color. We can say set player color here. And I'm gonna make this function. Go to game.h, void set player color. And then go to game.cpp and define it. Void set player color. I forgot the game : code. And I just paste that code and remove the type because it's already declared. And it takes the Windows Surface format, assuming it's already Windows Surface already exists, and it sets that color. Note I'm using like the setter naming convention, even though it's not proper, like usually it would take parameter and that stuff. So I'm not thinking in terms of setter here, okay? I'm just making a void function to do something without returning anything. Okay, so that looks great. And then we don't have that in the loop anymore, so it's already done only once. I don't know if it's going to cause problems. We'll see later. So we're done here with the run. Let's go back to handle player input and take a look. So we're calling, we have this, we have that. You know, something, map coordinate to tile ID. That's something we don't have here. So let's go back to main.cpp. We have map coordinate tile ID. We also have is blockable, right? So maybe we want to take all of these And let's see, put in game.cpp, add the prefix game : game : to the function names. Then you just copy the function names to the header file. But before I do that, let me check if we need these parameters. Map coordinate style ID, let's see. It's giving a new position in the game map tiles. Game map tiles are already accessible, so I don't need that. I'll remove that. So go back to map coordinate, remove this second argument from the calls. And finally, go back to the function and remove the second parent. Oh, sorry. Is it second? Yeah, it's the second. We already have tiles as a private of game.h. Game class has a private variable here. Where is it? Here, line 12. Go back to where we were. Let me remove all these spaces from main. Go back to game.cpp. Okay, so we're good with this function. Now go back to the calls. We're also referencing is walkable tile. That's also okay, but it's referencing this thing called floor. We don't have that. Okay, so let's go back to main.cpp. So we have this tile type enum. I could take that and put in game.h. That's totally fine, but I'm actually going to make a new file. And I'm going to say tile type.h. And I'm going to place it here, okay? And then I'm going to put a guard. I'm going to say if and def. If not defined, underscore underscore tile underscore type underscore h underscore underscore. Then define the very same symbol. So the next time it won't do anything. It won't include it again. And that's the enum. And then we can include this from wherever we're referencing the, I think it was in game.cpp, right, floor. So we can go all the way up there and include the tile type.h. When we compile game.cpp, we already included, so we don't have to add this to the g++ command statements. So we got that. And seems like we are done with everything. We isolated all the logic outside of main to the game class. We created a new object called game, instance of the game class. And we run all these commands to initialize the game, and at the end shut down, and in between create the window, set the player color, load the game map for debugging purposes, print the game map. Then we set up the game map surface and then set the player position initially, and then we run the game loop. It's time for us to try compiling it and see if we have any problems that we have to address. So I'm going to close this and do it again. And it's a lot of problems. So let's go to the very first one. As I told you before, they're likely to be problems, and we just handle one by one. Let's go to the very first one at the top. In file included from main.cpp, game.h. So it's saying from main.cpp line 5 include game.h. Let's go to game.h. Game.h line 31 column 26, line 31 column 26. I'm missing a semicolon, so I add a semicolon here. And the second problem is the same thing. We can just rerun if we want, and then go back and see. Now game.cpp 150, game.cpp 150, line 150. It's saying what? No matching function to call page entrance. Oh, because of the second argument. We don't need that anymore because it's already a private member of the class, right? We can see here line 13, 14, we already have that, and we can just remove it. And we can check the declaration. the definition here, X signature, doesn't have it. So we fixed that problem. Let's compile it again. Next problem is map coordinate to tile ID is not declaring the scope. Okay, so did I add that to the... We have these two. Did I add that to the header? Seems like I didn't, right? So let's copy this. And let me add it here to the public member function of game class. And do the same for the walkable tile. Is walkable tile. Go back to game.h under public. Add this new function. Remove the prefix game.::. Save that. And it finally compiled. Let's see if we're in the right place. It works. There's collision. Go up, go down, go to the right, go to the left, go down. Looking good. Let's go through the bottom here. So it seems like everything's working fine. And that's our whole refactoring. And now click exit and it works just fine. Okay, so in this lesson we finished the refactoring to move all the logic from the main.cpp file. And I forgot to save that, so let me check again. Sorry. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so we moved all the game logic to the game class. We created this game.h file. And we have all these private members that are accessible by every single member function under the public. Not necessarily under public, but it could be private too. But public just because we want to be able to call all these methods from the outside as we create an instance of the game object, game class. And that object we can call these functions because they are public, and these functions in turn they themselves can access the private data members. And because the game class is a local variable to main, its scope will be until main is over. So for the duration of the game, as long as it's running, there will be no problems with variables going away due to scoping being closed. So the game will persist, game object will exist as long as the function main is running. So until the end, we can do initialize and up to the end shut down the game to make sure SDL is closed. And in between you have all these things setting up of the game until the game loop of the run method. So the run is where the game loop is. We do all this stuff, checking for input first, and then we do the repainting and update the Windows surface. And we created this style type.h2 just to make things more organized. Just one thing I want to do before we move on is check these headers, game class, game headers, check for C of the includes here. So we have all these includes for using SDL, that's fine. So none of these use anything unknown here, so that's fine. Now since I have this here, let me make sure it's not there in the game implementation. It's not here, so that's fine. As of main.cpp, let's go back here. All we have to know here is the game, so it's here. Do we need to have SDL here? No. Do we need to have string here? No, we're not using. Do we need to have IOStream? No. FStream? No. So remove all of those. Let's recompile to see if nothing messed up. Alright, so I think we're good here. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next lesson. Goodbye.